Christmas at Lee Ward. The savings are great. There's only 1 week to save. Don't be late.
Lee Ward's, America's Home Craft Center.
WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
What in the world is this guy doing here? Yep, you got it. He is skiing down I-35W. It is a motorized wind tunnel that's been brought to our area to help train local ski jumpers. Hello, everyone. I'm Ralph John Fritz. That story is part of this, the Tuesday, October 19th edition of the 5 p.m. report. And if the skiers are training, can winter be far behind? Well, actually, let's skip over winter. I know we're going to get snow eventually, but how about the World Series, Mike Fairborn? I'm told that 80% chance of rain out there for
80% chance of rain. Just an hour or so ago, the National Weather Service Severe Storms Forecast Center issued a tornado watch for much of the state of Missouri. Does not include St. Louis, but they're in for a tough night down there tonight. And, gee, those skiers just ought to stick around a little while because we do have snow out in Pipestone, Minnesota, 4 inches of snow already on the ground. Some of that's headed our way. We'll give you all the details here in just a minute, Don.
I hope the sum of it is very little.
Very little.
Okay, Mike, we'll see you later. Thank you very much. We've got other stories coming up on today's 5 p.m. report. A look behind the scenes at the Orpheum Theater in downtown Minneapolis. There's a Broadway show opening there tonight. It's called Sugar Babies. And a bit later, Bill Carlson will introduce us to one of the stars of that show. And from the newsroom, Ann Rubenstein headlines some of the other stories coming up this afternoon.
One of the things we'll tell you about is senior unemployment. That is the jobless rate among people over 50 years old, which is a significant problem in this country. Larry Kuttner is going to explain a proposal that would change the billing procedure at Hennepin County Medical Center. The proposal has some officials upset and may end up costing consumers more money. And from our Washington newsroom, Jim Gately will report that a consumer group charges 105 congressmen with catering to special interest groups. Those stories are part of the Tuesday 5 p.m. report. Don?
All right, thanks, Ann. Some people say parts of Wabasha Avenue in St. Paul are the last sleazy parts of the downtown area. The St. Paul City Council will soon take up a plan to clean up and redevelop Wabasha. And Caroline Lowe has a story from our St. Paul newsroom. Good afternoon, Caroline.
Well, Don, despite the sleaze, North Wabasha Avenue is known as St. Paul's front porch, and it's the main entry to the city from the north and the west. The area is also the only major part of the downtown area in recent years that's continued to deteriorate, while more than $500 million in new development has flourished around it. Well, to help clean up North Wabasha and encourage its redevelopment, the city has come up with a blueprint for its future. City planners would like North Wabasha to become the, quote, bright light district of the city, an area which would include entertainment, some more residential development, and possibly a major new medium-level department store such as JCPenney's. On the whole, planners would like to see an atmosphere of excitement in the area, where the street life itself would be the main attraction. Currently, many pedestrians avoid North Wabasha because of the unpleasant environment on many of the blocks just south of the Science Museum. Well, the details of the city's proposal for North Wabasha will be unveiled before the City Council on Thursday. And if the council gives the green light on the project, it'll probably be 3 or 4 years before we actually see some of the development take place. Don?
Caroline, you did say the city leaders want that part of Wabasha to become the bright light area of the city. Is that right?
That's correct.
Good. I just want to clear that up. And also, I spent some time over in that St. Paul Bureau for a while. Where'd you go? There you are. I spent some time over in that part of the city, in the St. Paul Bureau. What street is the St. Paul Bureau on?
4th and Wabasha.
That's the good part of it, though.
It's on the edge.
All right. Thank you very much, Caroline. Now, for some time, we've known that unemployment is especially severe in northern Minnesota. Today, the government confirmed that. The Labor Department says that unemployment in Duluth Superior is the 3rd highest in the nation at 19.5%. The only cities with more severe unemployment problems than Duluth Superior are Youngstown, Ohio, and Decatur, Illinois.
Since January, the unemployment rate for people over 55 years of age has risen 24%. That is the highest of any age group. Lisa Schrofer talked with some of those people today about the problems and has a case in point.
Yeah, we have spoken with Lambert Callis, who will be 55 next month. He was laid off from Munsingware after working there for 31 years. His wife is working, so they're getting by, but they have a 7-year-old son, so it's not as though all their children are grown.
How is he doing emotionally? We know the financial hardship, but the emotional hardship as well.
That's just about the worst part of the situation as far as he sees it. He says that he feels useless right now. He's worked all his life. Now he has nothing to do but look for work, and there aren't many jobs to be found. He hasn't found any yet. He says he hasn't given up, but it's hard to be rejected so often and still feel hope.
You know, I think a lot of people assume that it's easier for people who are 50 and 55 years old because people assume they have something saved and money put away, but I would imagine there's some problems that are exclusive to those people.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, once you hit 55, that is the point when you are in the group that's hardest to find work once you lose it. It takes people that age twice as long to find work as people who are 20 years younger than that. It causes big problems because you're in an in-between stage. You won't get your pension, you aren't old enough to qualify for Social Security, but at the same time, you may be too old to go into a new profession. So it's a big, big problem.
Do they run up against age discrimination a lot, or what they perceive as age discrimination?
There are more age discrimination suits being filed right now than at any other time before. The big problem, Mr. Callis was saying that you will go into an interview and you don't know. I mean, it's not something that's mentioned. But they think, you know, age has a big part to do with why they're not getting work.
They think somebody's looking at them like, oh, you might be just over the hill or too old to do the work or to be worth the investment that we may put into you. Has this changed the retirement patterns of people, or do you think it was going to?
Well, that is a big problem because the retirement patterns are changing. People are not leaving work as they used to as early, so that means there are more people in the job market, fewer jobs than people. Someone from the Senior Federation told me that people often won't retire. They retire in quotes because they won't retire until they have a part-time job lined up.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Don?
Appreciate it. It's about 6.5 minutes past 5 o'clock, and we're going up now to the Live Eye in the Sky helicopter where it looks kind of green and ugly and yuck. What is happening out there, Dale?
Well, to be truthful, Don, it's just kind of a nasty afternoon out here with the rain and the ceilings. Traffic-wise, it's the same thing. We've got very, very slow and go conditions all over the metropolitan area. Fortunately, no accidents reported on the major freeways. There are some fender benders reported in the downtown area, both downtown St. Paul and Minneapolis, but fortunately no injuries. But extremely slow due to the rain and all the wet roads, and you can see the backups here. This is 35W and 94 near Minneapolis. So, as I said, real slow, and hopefully things will get moving here a little bit better, and we'll be back a few minutes with an update.
Another sign of the times there, Dale. We know that it's dark out there because of the rain and the cloud cover and the low ceiling, but we see headlights at this time of day. That means things are getting toward winter.
Well, that's true, Don. Also, of course, it's a good idea to turn the lights on if you're driving in the rain, so you can be the old see and be seen rule, I guess.
You bet. If it gets too much worse, you put that thing down somewhere.
You betcha. All
righty, partner. Now, when we come back, Dr. Larry Kuttner will report from the newsroom on a controversy at the Hennepin County Medical Center.
You've heard of a perfect 10. Well, meet a perfect 96. Schmidt Light Beer with exactly 96 calories. The perfect balance of lightness and flavor. Light beers with fewer than 96 calories? What's missing? With more than 96 calories, are they light beers? Schmidt Light is light on calories and big on taste. Sometimes a 10 is tops. But in light beer, go for less filling Schmidt Light. The perfect 96.
There's the Pritikin diet and the Scarsdale diet and the Citizen diet. Because you can't be too rich or too thin.
Rich, thin. Golden wafers from Citizen, the watchword.
I'm about to show you how you can fight drafts and frosty windows with this new window insulator kit from 3M. You just stick it in place from the inside, heat it with a hairdryer, and the wrinkles disappear. Airtight and clear as glass. Now you can see how cold it is out there without feeling it in here. Look for the 3M window insulator kit in the tartan plaid package. There's just one rule for doing it yourself. Don't do it yourself without 3M.
The people who run the Hennepin County Medical Center think they've come up with a way to save the county several $1 million every year, and it all has to do with the way they fill out the medical forms.
The medical center collects less money when it sends a bill to Medicaid than other area hospitals do. The proposed plan involves a change in bookkeeping that would bring in more federal dollars. Larry Kuttner joins us with this complicated story right now. Explain the proposal that they're talking about.
Well, unlike at other hospitals, the doctors at Hennepin County Medical Center are on a salary. They're paid with a salary. That means that they don't send the bills themselves to Medicare. The hospital does. And because it's a hospital bill, it gets paid at a lower rate than if it were paid to a private practice physician.
So what does the proposal want to do?
Well, what the proposal is that the county is trying to have the doctors set up their own corporation so that the corporation would bill Medicare and collect more money. That means the doctors get more money for their services. It also means the county isn't burdened with the salary expense of the doctors. So they're going to be saving some fraction of the $6.5 million a year that it costs them to pay the doctors.
Well, it sounds terrific. Who's against it and why?
Well, it sounds like it would be a really good idea, but there are some people who have some ethical qualms, notably Commissioner Bud Robb, who's a Hennepin County commissioner. And what he says is this is the sort of thing that is billing out more money for the same practices just to change bookkeeping directions. That's what's getting the federal government into all sorts of economic problems, and he says it's a very short-sighted approach. Now, the people at the medical center are saying, hey, it's our obligation to save the county as much money as we can, and we're going to go for all the federal funds and state funds that we can. So this is what we should do.
What does this mean to the average consumer? What will this ever mean to the average consumer?
Well, we're not sure what it'll mean. It won't mean a change in hospital bills, that's one thing. But it may save the county money. What the county decides to do with this money, whether it's going to cut back on taxes or just reallocate it, that's up to the county, and that's a separate decision.
But for that money that's saved, if Medicaid expenses go up, then
everyone shares it, and if this goes on enough, at least according to Commissioner Robb, then everything's going to go up again. So it's almost a short-run, long-run economic problem.
Briefly, where's the proposal now?
The proposal is being studied. The results should be in January. The odds are it's going to pass, according to all the people concerned.
Thank you, Larry. Don?
A coalition of consumer groups today charged 105, count them, 105 members of Congress with bowing to special interests. 3 of those congressmen are from our area. Jim Gately has the story from our Washington newsroom. Good afternoon, Jim.
Good afternoon, Don. 6 consumer groups have announced the winners in what they call the 1982 Special Interest Sweepstakes. These consumer lobbyists claim that the representatives on their list have consistently voted with industry and against their constituents, the consumers.
A used car lemon bill was cited as an example. Legislation would have forced dealers to tell potential buyers of all known defects. The consumer group cited 3 local congressmen who voted against the so-called lemon bill and also received campaign contributions from the used car industry.
Essentially, what they've become are legalized bribes.
Joan Clayburg of the group Consumer Watch and 5 other consumer lobbyists cited 5 bills where they say representatives acted against the consumers' interests. These consumer groups claim that campaign contributions made the difference.
They have certainly been bought off on these particular bills, and they're probably been bought off on other bills. What we're trying to do is to make that a hot seat.
Minnesota Republican Representative Vin Weber was cited by the consumer groups. He totally disagrees with the charges and says these people don't know what's in the consumer's best interests. Fellow Republican Tom Hagedorn said it's absolutely absurd to say he's anti-consumer, and he charged the groups with being irresponsible to imply that campaign contributions can influence his votes. Western Wisconsin's Republican Representative Steve Gunderson was the other local congressman cited by the consumer groups.
Just a few minutes ago, Congressman Gunderson responded by saying the groups don't really understand the proposed legislation, and he stands behind his pro-consumer record. Now, on a separate matter, DFL senatorial candidate Mark Dayton is continuing his record spending rate. Today in Washington, he filed papers showing he has given his campaign another $350,000. That brings his total personal contributions to more than $5.5 million. Don?
Jim, what are they saying in Washington, D.C. about this fellow in Minnesota, Dayton, who now has spent more than any other senatorial candidate in history? Is official Washington talking about that at all?
Yes, it is. It's getting a lot of attention. They consider the race very close. You have various groups that come out and say to accept money from political action committees like Senator Durenberger does, and many others do, is wrong. And then you have people that come out and say, it's just incredible, that spending rate. I think he still has a little ways to go. Dayton still has a little ways to go to beat Senator Jesse Helms, though, in the overall race, but it's not over yet.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim. A full report on the day's world and national news is coming up at 5:30 on CBS, and here's a preview of it.
On tonight's broadcast, President Reagan says he will give serious consideration to Lebanese President Gemayel's proposal to enlarge the multinational peacekeeping force. A task force focuses efforts on locating prime suspects in the Tylenol murders and a classified approach to helping the unemployed. More details later on the CBS Evening News, so stay with us.
Mike Fairborn is going to join us with a word on those alleged snowstorms in just a moment.
Rogers, your R7 circuit design.
Yeah?
They bought it.
My design?
Can you get it to the plant overnight?
My design? Well, then get me the biggest. Get me the best. Get me the overnight package delivery company with the most people, the most planes, the most fans, the most books. The company that can take it to the most places. The company that delivers the most packages.
Eurolater Courier, a giant of the overnight package delivery business.
Free! At last! Free! Your hair moves freely, naturally, with advanced formula VO5 hairspray, the natural beauty spray. Comb it, style it, finish it with new VO5 hairspray, the natural beauty spray, improved to look even more natural, yet holds an incredible 14 hours. Your hair will look sensational all day long. Advanced formula Alberto VO5 hairspray, the natural beauty spray. Free!
Look how water can destroy unprotected wood, but not if it's protected with Thompson's Water Seal. Use Thompson's Water Seal waterproofer on dozens of surfaces. Brush on Thompson's for an invisible barrier that helps prevent water from entering and damaging brick, wood, and concrete. Your house isn't really protected until it's protected with Thompson's Water Seal. Many stores now have special values on Thompson's Water Seal.
This is long-lasting moisturizing from Lubriderm, an extraordinary hand and body treatment created for dermatologists. Lubriderm drenches dry skin with 6 emollients, so rich, so penetrating that with continued use, its moisturizing benefits last, even if you skip a day. So your hands, your body always feels soft and smooth, never dry. Long-lasting moisturizing with Lubriderm. It's what your skin has been thirsting for. Lubriderm.
Funny thing about we Minnesotans, when it snows, we can drive like the dickens, but when you give us some rain, we have to just park that car. It looks awfully slow, Dale.
It is terribly slow, Don, just terribly slow out here. And as you say, it's generally the situation all over the metropolitan area. It's just slow and go. And this is 9435W in Minneapolis, and one just coming vertical on your screen there is eastbound 94. It's kind of popped out of the way there. A little bumpy up here today, too. But generally, as we said, very slow all over the metro area, so if you're waiting for someone at home, turn the burner down. They're going to be a few minutes late. We're going to pass it back to you and find out from Mike a little more about what we can expect in the weather coming up here.
All right. Well, Dale, ask it, Mike. What can we expect? You said snow earlier, and that's scary.
That's right. Let's put things in perspective. You know, we've had 66/100 of an inch of precipitation here at WCCO. Officially out at the National Weather Service, about a half an inch. That's all been in the form of rain. Ordinarily, we figure about a 10-to-1 ratio between rain and snow, so we could have had between 5 and 6 to 7 inches of snow here if that had all been in the form of snow. Thank heavens it isn't. Out in the west, though, out around Pipestone, they've had between 4 and 6 inches of snow this afternoon. Down in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, still snowing a little bit down in that area. And they do have traveler's advisories. We'll show you a map of that here in just a minute. But for us, most of it is going to be in the form of rainfall, but changing to snow a little bit later on tonight. So we will probably see our first flakes in the air, but we're still not expecting any accumulation. The ground is still just too warm, and anything that falls is going to melt off fairly fast. Take a look at this satellite picture that we have. Thunderstorms, believe it or not. First time we've seen those showing up on our satellite picture now for a few weeks, really. But that big black blob is the cold top to that thunderstorm cell that moved right up across southwest Minnesota. We did have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for parts of Iowa and Wisconsin from those thunderstorms, but we've had no reports of any severe weather. And of course, there's still a chance of some thunderstorms around. We have had some of those here in the metropolitan area. Now, we'll back up a couple of hours on the radar and show you a replay of what this has looked like moving into us. Well, this is a live picture right now, and we still have some snow reported up around Alexandria. We still have some thunderstorm activity down to the southwest and to the southeast of us, and just a good, hard, general rain over all of the area right now. But watch for that to begin to become mixed with and changing to snow a little bit later on in the night yet tonight. Well, temperatures kind of tells it all. These are temperatures around the metropolitan area and around the 5-state area. live radar there, you can, well, let's go to the temperatures around the 5-state area. You can see that we are 45 degrees up to the north of us. Temperatures dropped off into the mid-30s. We get down to around 38, 39 degrees, and we can see the rain changing to snow here locally as well, and we're at 45 now. So we've still got a few degrees to go, but it's still on its way, that's for sure. Warnings, travelers advisories in effect for much of eastern South Dakota and for southwest Minnesota. Up to 4 inches of snow possible. We've already had reports of that. Some areas will undoubtedly have more of it. So if you're traveling out in that direction, be aware of the fact that it's going to be rough going, especially where that snow is falling on the highways and beginning to freeze. Tomorrow's map indicates that low pressure area moving on to the east. The clouds will be dissipating over us late in the afternoon tomorrow as high pressure builds in. And right now, it looks like we're going to return to Indian summer over the weekend. Keep your fingers crossed. Warming trend coming up with a lot of sunshine on the way. Current conditions were 45 degrees, 83% humidity, winds northeast 22, gusting to 30, and the barometer's 29.83 and falling. Our forecast for tonight, thunderstorms, rain, then becoming mixed with and changing to snow. We expect the winds to continue out of the northwest at 10 to 25 with a low of around 30 degrees. And tomorrow, the flurries will be ending in the morning, what little bit we do have left over, decreasing clouds, and a high temperature of around 44 degrees. I hope we do get our first snow. Then we can stop worrying about whether we're going to catch the first snowstorm in our forecast or not.
Some of us will stop worrying.
Well, we need to get that snow for those poor skiers that are using wind tunnels on
And we should have a cold weather rule that you can't start complaining about the weather until November 1st. What do you think?
I'd go for that. You bet.
Some St. Paul College students met face-to-face today with a figure out of not too distant American history. John Dean, one of the chief figures in the Watergate scandal, spoke to students at the College of St. Thomas. Most of the students in the audience were only 8 or 9 years old when Watergate was in the news, but Dean said he's glad to see there is still an interest in the case 10 years later. Dean was one of 6 White House aides who served prison terms for their role in the scandal. There's a Broadway play opening in the Twin Cities tonight. It's called Sugar Babies, a nostalgic look at burlesque, the way burlesque probably never was. Bill Carlson is at the Orpheum Theater now with some of the stars. Bill?
Right, Ann. It is kind of a hybrid form of burlesque, right, Eddie Bracken?
Well, actually, when you say burlesque, people tend to think that they're coming to see strippers at work and nudity and some four-letter words. But this is really the history of burlesque. It's not burlesque itself as it is today. There's no nudity in our show. I hate to tell some of the people who want to see nudity, there's none. And there are no four-letter words. You can bring all your children to it, but there are double entendre, words with double meanings. In other words, we played the cleanest show in town, but the dirtiest-minded audiences come and see it.
You can see the folks all getting ready here, and I know many of the trucks of scenery and everything just arrived today, and so it's an exciting last moment. Do you ever get over that feeling of anticipation for an opening night?
No. Well, it changes in that I used to have stomach shaking and butterflies and a lot of things like that, but no, now it's not like that at all. Now I can walk out of a gin game and walk right on, and have some fun. This is home to me. I live in a great big living room that a lot of people come and have fun in and laugh at, and that's really what it is. You asked me before where I live. This is where I live.
Eddie Bracken's been in show business since he was 3 years old, which was 1964, I think it was, right?
Yeah, when I was 3 years old? No, it was about 1904.
Okay. Never Will Stop. All of those successful movies. I just said to Eddie, why don't we get a kid's barn, a daddy's barn, and get all the kids together and put on a show? And you said?
Well, of course, I made that movie called Summer Stock with Judy Garland and Gene Kelly. So there isn't an idea you could bring up that wasn't made into a movie somehow or another.
Right. It isn't Daddy's Barn. It's the Orpheum, and it isn't all the kids together. It's a grand cast, including Tony Kaye and Phil Ford and Mimi Hines,
right.
And of course Eddie Bracken, and it's opening tonight at the Orpheum. Ann?
Thank you, Bill. When we come back, Ralph John Fritz will tell us why a man you're about to see, was skiing down the freeway today. It's part of our sports report up next.
I got my A's.
I got my B's.
We've got our E's. Got my C and D. I get Myodeck because I want more for me.
Compare the leading multivitamin mineral formulas.
Breeze gets them too. And weather certainly played no small part in tonight's World Series game. Seems like it had an effect the whole series. Whole series.
It really has. It's coming up. This is a textbook night, huh? Right. Okay. Thank you, Joe. We've got another forecaster over here, and it's looking better and better.
In St. Paul, it seems the local couple is via.
Stan liked that story, didn't you, Stan?
Yeah.
That's it for tonight.
Gotta go.
Good night.
Good night. Coverage of the World Series. Thank you for being with us. We'll be back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Until then, have a good night.
But also the frustration of wondering whether being over 55 is the real reason and the employer is looking for a younger person. But I don't know that, so I can't really deal with it.
Anderson headed a trade association before he lost his job in March. Both men have wives who work, and that's what's tiding them over. Being jobless, though, is more than a financial strain, they say. There's a nagging feeling that doesn't go away.
Some days you feel, well, I don't give a darn for the day. I'm just going to relax. But it keeps coming back.
With photographers John Seidlitz and Pete Newswanger, Lisa Schrofer, WCCO Television News.
The list of differences between DFLer Rudy Perpich and Republican Wheelock Whitney grows longer as the election gets closer. Today, Perpich charged Whitney with telling only half the truth in a series of new commercials devoted to Perpich's years in office. Whitney says he has no choice but to attack Perpich's record because he has few proposals for the future. One Perpich proposal is the formation of a grain sale alliance where farmers would withhold grain until the price increases, an idea Whitney says won't work.
The thing that I'm worried about is that our grain, our wheat, our corn, our beans would be piled up in this area, and people would be selling them below our price all over the world.
And they feel, if nothing else, that by getting together and speaking in one voice, that we will have maybe more of an input with the people in Washington also. That once they know that the farmers there, that is so very difficult for, they're very independent, the farmers are, and it's been very difficult for them to be organized and to get together to get that price.
With other candidates from other Midwest states interested in the grain sale alliance. Dave?
By a narrow vote, the Knesset, the Israeli parliament today, rejected a plan calling for a federation between Jordan and a Palestinian West Bank. The measure is a key plank in President Reagan's Middle East peace plan. Skip?
And David, tonight World Bank officials here in Washington agreed to send a delegation to Lebanon next month to plan an assistance program. Money from such sources as the World Bank is exactly what President Reagan is counting on to help the Lebanese rebuild. Mr. Reagan met today for 2 hours with President Amin Gemayel, who asked not only for American aid, but also to expand the role of the multinational peacekeeping force, and that could mean more U.S. Marines will be needed. The president says he's open to such a possibility. Gemayel says he's committed to clearing out all foreign troops from his country.
I, together with my people, am committed to the immediate removal of all foreign forces from our soil.
Israeli officials say they do not object to an expanded UN peacekeeping force moving into the Lebanese countryside. They simply don't want those troops along the border with Israel. David?
We'll be back with more of the 10 p.m. report in just a moment.
What exactly is it? Oh, you haven't heard? Smartest money idea in years. Really? Tell me more. Money fund checking. Gives you access to money market rates at a bank. Money fund checking. Lets you write checks, and all your money works full time. Money fund checking at your bank? Yeah. Come on.
Hey, what bank?
Money fund checking at your Northwestern Bank, the Money Center.
This is the world of Estee Lauder, filled with glamorous times. And now she has a gift for you, a whole beauty collection, including Estee Super Cologne Spray, the fragrance the Estee Lauder woman is wearing. This $20 value is your gift with any Estee Lauder purchase of $7.50 or more. How great to have Estee Lauder treat you to Estee Lauder. Your gift with a purchase is available through October 30th at Dayton's Cosmetics.
From Radio Shack's world of the TRS-80 comes the Model 3 computer. And this month only, save $111. Select from Radio Shack's huge program library to aid your children's education. Plan your personal and household budgets. Or to entertain with fast-action games. You can even learn to write programs. The TRS-80 Model 3 on sale for $888. Only at Radio Shack, the computer experts.
It seems there are no limits to human cruelty. The latest grotesque example comes from California. The victims are California's already endangered brown pelicans. Someone has sawed off the top beak of at least 10 of the birds, forcing them to starvation. Nature has been particularly rough on the birds already this year, offering a shortage of natural food sources. The pelicans prey on fish, so too do fishermen. Investigators suspect an angry fisherman may have mutilated the birds. 3 of the pelicans have been taken to animal hospitals where they're being hand-fed. Doctors hope to build new beaks for the birds made of fiberglass, but of course that's not a guarantee the pelicans will survive. Tonight, there's also a sad ending to a survival story closer to home.
There is, Dave. In fact, there is no hope for a bald eagle that was found yesterday in a leg hold trap near Rhinelander, Wisconsin. The bird was put to sleep today after specialists at the Raptor Research and Rehabilitation Center at the University of Minnesota determined there was just no way to save the bird. Debbie Ely reports.
The eagle's legs were so badly mangled by the trap that it could not stand. What was once a majestic bird was now a crumpled heap at the bottom of a cage. Raptor doctors decided that without the use of either leg, the eagle would not survive. Last year, the center treated more eagle leg trap injuries than ever before. Doctors expect the problem will be worse this hunting season.
For the last couple of years, there have been more trappers in the field than there have been in the past, and the DNR statistics in terms of licenses sold would bear this out. And one of the suggestions that's been made is that in the current economic times that we're experiencing, people turn to things like trapping.
Late this afternoon, Dr. Redding and his staff determined that the eagle found near Rhinelander would have to be put out of its misery. Ironically, before the eagle died, the bird aided in saving other eagles' lives. Doctors withdrew blood samples. The samples will be used in genetic studies. Research is also underway into whether one eagle's blood can be transfused to another eagle. And then, not in the view of television cameras, the eagle was given a lethal injection of sodium pentobarbital. The eagle's big blue eyes closed for the last time. Debbie Ely, WCCO Television News, St. Paul.
A Lakeville baby was found dead just a few hours after its birth, and now authorities do suspect homicide. The Dakota County attorney will call a grand jury to investigate the baby's death, born to an 18-year-old woman just last week.
22-year-old Mark.
I'm Bill Curtis, an insider's look at one of our most fascinating presidents, Lyndon B. Johnson, and how colleges are combating economic illiteracy. Tomorrow on the CBS Morning News.
This is CBS.
Good evening, everyone. In tonight's local and regional headlines, Dave Nimmer will report on campaign charges of misleading advertising by the incumbent in the Chisago County Sheriff's race. We will hear about the controversy over billing practices at the Hennepin County Medical Center. Caroline Lowe will report on plans to spruce up St. Paul's North Wabasha Avenue, otherwise known as the front porch to the city. And as part of our Campaign 82 coverage, Tom Hendrick will profile the race in the 6th Congressional District between Jerry Sikorsky and Arlen Erdahl. All of these stories coming up on tonight's 6 p.m. report.
Target announces the grand opening sale of its new Rochester store. You'll discover brand name bargains like men's and women's Wrangler cords and denim jeans. You get popular Western styling and a great fit. Choose pre-washed Wrangler denims or soft cords in a variety of popular colors. Grand opening sale priced at just $12.99 a pair. Boys' denims and cords in sizes 8 to 16 are now just $8.99 a pair. All Twin City and Rochester stores are celebrating the grand opening sale at Target.
This is the world of Estee Lauder, filled with glamorous times. And now she has a gift for you, a whole beauty collection, including Estee Super Cologne Spray, the fragrance the Estee Lauder woman is wearing. This $20 value is your gift with any Estee Lauder purchase of $7.50 or more. How great to have Estee Lauder treat you to Estee Lauder. Your gift with a purchase is available through October 30th at Dayton's Cosmetics.
WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
From WCCO Television, the Northwest's leading news station, this is the 6 p.m. report.
everyone. The twists and turns of the Chisago County Sheriff's race lead the news at this hour.
A national report on child abuse to be broadcast on ABC's 2020 news program a week from next Thursday has become an issue in that race. Part of the report deals with Sheriff Floyd Panatti's handling of the case against one Edward Linehan, a father convicted and sentenced to a year in prison for molesting 2 of his daughters. Dave Nimmer has the story.
The campaign in Chisago County is a 3-way race between Dave Ninneman, a highway patrol veteran, Doug Brown, a former Chisago undersheriff, and incumbent Panatti, who is running as a write-in candidate. There have been some charges and countercharges during the campaign over crime figures and misleading letters of endorsement. But the most recent flap is over a Panatti for Sheriff ad that ran in 3 weekly newspapers and that his campaign opponents say is downright misleading. The ad calls attention to Panatti's scheduled appearance on a segment of 2020. This interview came about, says the ad, quote, as a result of Sheriff Panatti's work with the Minnesota legislature in an effort to secure more effective child abuse laws for our state, unquote. That's not the way the woman who produced the report for 2020 sees it.
I'm quite astonished that he's representing himself as an expert in child abuse or as a pioneer in any way, because we had understood the opposite.
Ms. Reisner says that 2020 was interested in Sheriff Panatti because of the Linehan case.
And I spoke to him about his aspect, about one aspect only, and that was his involvement as an investigator, which had occurred several years before the case had brought to trial. Huh. And we were interested in finding out why it took so long to bring the case to prosecution.
The program reportedly features an interview with one of the Linehan girls, saying that Sheriff Panatti knew about the child abuse, and yet, after one incident, told the girls to go home and show more affection to their father, to give him a nice big hug. As for Sheriff Panatti, he said he never had an inkling that Linehan was abusing his children. Today, he turned down an on-camera interview, saying he'd been unfairly skewered in the past by the big city media. But he did say his ad was truthful, that a 2020 spokesman said the news crew was doing a statewide story on child abuse and never once mentioned the Linehan case prior to the interview. Whether or not the truth was stretched is something for the voters to decide when they vote for sheriff on November the 2nd. One thing seems fairly certain, however, and that is that 2020 will have more than its share of interested onlookers here next week. With photographer Bill Kemplin, Dave Nimmer, WCCO Television News in Chisago County.
Late this afternoon, Sheriff Panatti told a publisher that he wished to change the offending ad, which is scheduled to appear Thursday in the Chicago County Press. It will now read, Sheriff Panatti believed he was to be interviewed by 2020 as a result of his work with an interagency advisory committee on child abuse laws. And the ad goes on, the revised ad goes on. Although the interview proved to be for another purpose, he, the sheriff, urges the public to watch the show and form their own judgments, unquote. Jury selection began today in the Craig Jackson murder trial. 50 prospective jurors are being interviewed, questioned about possible biases they may have against the insanity plea, which of course has been so highly publicized since the acquittal of John Hinckley Jr. in the shooting of President Reagan. Jackson has pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity to the murders of his 2 children and 2 women.
St. Paul's North Wabasha Avenue is the city's latest selection for a revitalization project. As Caroline Lowe reports now from our St. Paul newsroom, there is some concern, though, over deterioration in that area. Caroline?
Well, Pat, North Wabasha Street is known as St. Paul's front porch, and it's a main entry to the city from the north and the west. The avenue was once a center of downtown St. Paul's nightlife. Around the first half of the century, North Wabasha drew thousands of people to its movie theaters and restaurants located south of the state capitol. But during the past 25 years, the avenue experienced much of the deterioration that was evident throughout the downtown area. In recent years, more than $500 million in redevelopment has been taking place near the Loop. But so far, most of the reinvestment has taken place off of Wabasha Avenue. But now, city planners have come up with some proposals to bring the avenue back to life once again.
It's really the next major redevelopment area in downtown. We finished the redevelopment of the Central Core. We finished, to a large extent, the redevelopment of Lower Town. The one major area where we haven't done anything is North Wabasha.
The plan calls for a mixture of residential, entertainment, and retail development on the avenue. Bellis is hopeful that eventually it will become known as the Bright Light District of the city, where the street life itself is the main attraction. On Thursday, the plan will be formally unveiled before the City Council, and if it's approved, planners will use it as a development tool to promote North Wabasha to potential investors.
And if all goes well, it'll probably be about 3 or 4 years before we see some actual development on North Wabasha. Back to you, Pat.
Thank you, Caroline. Hennepin County will begin trying to resolve problems between public utilities and the needy. The county board today created a task force on emergency needs to help the increasing number of people who have had their heat shut off. Panel members include county officials, representatives from the various utilities, and also several advocacy groups.
Suppose this does not come as a surprise to many of us, although it's rather startling to see the figures in print. Duluth Superior has one of the highest unemployment rates of all the major urban areas in this country. Unemployment in Duluth Superior is at 19.5%, as compared with the highest rate in the country, 29.9%, or 30% in Youngstown, Ohio. Now, these are the latest figures released by the U.S. Labor Department. There is a billing battle in progress at the Hennepin County Medical Center. We'll look into that story when the 6 p.m. report resumes.
Here, in the middle of America, there's lots of small towns. Lots of big ones, too. They all have a lot in common, no matter the size. There's a post office, couple of churches, roads heading